There, fellow Toastmasters and Speechcrafters. My husband, my wonderful husband, is handing out some flyers for you, some handouts. When I was a little child, I used to love helping my mom bake cakes. The counter was about this high. We'd pull my little stool over. I'd climb up on the stool with my little pink bunny slippers. We'd assemble all the ingredients, and then Mom would let me help measure out the ingredients, putting them in the bowl, stirring it, and of course, pouring it into the pan, and the ever-popular licking the batter. I have great memories of baking cakes. So when I was asked to give a speech on how to construct a great speech, I thought, this is a piece of cake. It's just like baking a cake. Why do I say that? Well, what do you have when you want to make a cake? You have to assemble the ingredients first, right? So to get out your ingredients, you need basic ingredients. So we have basic ingredients like flour and your liquid ingredients. And baking soda, your leavening. The leavening, that's like the introduction. So the introduction is going to cause interest to rise in your speech. You also want to tell everybody what you're going to tell them. You give them a little preview of what you're going to say. So we're talking about a speech. We're assembling the ingredients for a speech. You want to catch their attention in your introduction. Next, you have the body of the speech. That's like the flour. That's the bulk of the cake. So you want 3 to 5 main points in the body of your speech. Well researched, preferably, even if the research is from your own memories. You have the liquid ingredients. The liquid ingredients are all under the topic of conclusion. The conclusion, what the conclusion does is it ties everything together. So you have all these dry ingredients, and then you take the wet ingredients and it ties it all together. So you make a summary, you basically tell them what you've told them. Again, you rehearse that. You want an unforgettable summary. So when they think about your speech and what was the point of it, that's your summary, that's your unforgettable summary. And you want to leave them with a thought, a purpose, an action, a takeaway that leaves like a texture they can take with them. So those are your basic ingredients, just like a cake. Next, what we want to do is we want to add some variety. We can add varieties with sweeteners. Sugar is your basic sweetener in a cake. In a speech, stories are your basic sweetener. They add interest. They add texture. You can take your audience to another place, to another time, to another emotion. Those are your stories. 1 to 3 stories in a speech is a good amount. When you're doing your stories, you want to make sure your story is relevant to your speech topic. Raisins are great in a carrot cake, not so much in a lemon cake. Make sure your story is relevant to your topic. And when you tell a story, show it. Just like a marshmallow shows up in your cake, it doesn't melt completely out. You want to show your story, not just tell it. So how do we show it? We can show it with body language. We can show it with word pictures. Pink bunny slippers. You can take your audience to where they can smell the cake. They can feel the flour in their hands. That's showing your story. And we're going to spice it up. We're going to spice up your speech. Jokes. That's a great way to spice up a speech. Adds a little humor, takes some levity off of everybody. We'll say, I'm not funny. Let me ask you this. Who here likes to bake cakes? Okay. Who likes to eat cakes? Who's ever seen a cake? Okay, now did you see those 3 questions that I just did? One was very specific, one was more general, and the third one was absurd. Who hasn't seen a cake, right? And that brings on humor. So you don't have to be a great joke teller to throw in that kind of joke. On the subject of jokes, just like you wouldn't put garlic powder in a cake recipe, bleh. You want to keep your jokes tasteful and unoffensive. Jokes should also be audience appropriate. You wouldn't tell the same joke with a group of engineers that you would with a group of 4th grade girls. So keep it audience appropriate. Sorry. So we take our bowl, which is basically the time and effort that you do to take all your ingredients and actually craft your speech. Then you take your whip, which is practice. Practice, 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 practice. When you have your batter all ready, you pour it into your cake pan. Here's the trick. This is your time limit. Different amount of batter, different amount of ingredients in your time limit. And I gotta hurry because my time is up. Now we have mnemonics and alliteration, so candy kisses, mnemonics, and metaphors that all can add variety to your speeches. And we whip it all together and we serve it up in a memorable way. So when you serve up your speech, you want to use the mnemonic VAT, V-A-T, visual, audio, auditory, and tactile. So video, visual, you can look at it. Audio, listen to it, music, things like that. Tactile, taste it, touch it, like that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is a recipe for a great speech.
Toastmasters, Speechcrafters, and Patti. Fantastic metaphor. The relationship between baking and speaking, the similarity was amazing. And the connection was very clear. Her visual aids were actual products. The question is in here, did she use any computer-generated visual aids? No, and she certainly didn't need them. The visual aids she had were perfect. She actually knows her ingredients, both for baking and for speaking. The staging was nice. Each time she presented a new ingredient, she brought it forward and talked about it and related it to speaking so that we could each burn into our minds what was happening. Now there was an occasional fidgeting with the paper bag, which was somewhat distracting, so she might have had maybe a flatter box with the props in it. The word choice was excellent, outstanding. I don't know how she did relate each ingredient to a speaking aspect. The speech was well researched, obviously well rehearsed. Now, what could she have done to make this more effective? Now, this is my personal opinion. When she brought a visual aid present, to talk about it, she brought it like this. Almost every time the visual aid was in front of her face. Never cover your face. You have a wonderful face, a very expressive face that adds to the speech, so never cover it up. You apologize with fidgeting with the bag, and then you said, I'm running out of time. I think we were all so engrossed with your speech, we didn't care. And what that does is distracts, breaks the flow of the speech, but it also says, maybe I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. So ignore the banners, ignore the apologize. What would have really made the speech totally memorable was if you had poured everything into the pan. But then I thought, that's not Patti. If you know what Patti's all about, it is giving. Patti will go home and she will use these ingredients to make something that will feed hundreds. So it's more important that she was very frugal. I love the baking metaphor that made the speech, and thank you very much, Patti. And I look forward to you getting your CC by June.